Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted, episode 358, the fourth day of Christmas edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
I'm Gavin Ashenden. It's the 29th of December, and wonderfully, it's a feast of St. Thomas à Becket.
That's right. Well, welcome back to the program, Gavin. How are you doing?
Well, Kevin, I'm fine. I'm very well. I've survived Christmas. I've been spiritually nourished, and I've managed to fighting off one of these chesty coffee infections. So the reason I'm allowed in the house and out of the stable is because when I did morning prayer in the stable for Facebook Live this morning, I coughed my way through the Psalms, which was a shame because in Lent and Advent, coughing and spluttering is spiritually appropriate. But in these times of celebration, it doesn't go down so well.
No.
So I'm in a warmer atmosphere, and I'm grateful for it.
Okay. Now, I had planned early in the week that we're just going to take the whole week off because there's not going to be any news other than the standard Christmas Carol news and the lesson and carol schedule. What could happen over Christmas? It's actually a busy time for clergy. They don't have time to cause controversy, consternation, or heresy. Well, that's not true this Christmas, because one of the first things I read from The Guardian on Tuesday was that there's an Ozan Foundation and that many of the heads of the board are clerics. So I said, I better get Gavin on the phone. I'm going to interrupt his Christmas rudely and find out what's going on.
Well, it's rather exciting. Kevin, it's a very good thing that today is the feast day of St. Thomas à Becket, because the life of St. Thomas was a surprising one, and it was all about the kingdom of heaven against the prevailing culture. Mm-hmm. So for a while, Thomas worked for Henry II as his chancellor, and he was a king's man. He implemented the political and secular culture. But when he was appointed archbishop, it was almost as if he had a conversion, and he began to give his life to defend the culture of the church and the kingdom over against the prevailing culture. And in a sense, it's a wonderful thing we're talking on his feast day, because we've got the same situation in parallel. Yet again, we have a prevailing secular culture to which a lot of Christians have found themselves attracted and captured by, and of course they think they're doing something wonderful for God. That's the tragedy of it. They're not being deliberately disobedient. They really see the fingerprints of God in the secular culture, and people like us, as we read the Bible and as we look at tradition, think they're being profoundly mistaken, and that actually the kingdom of heaven and biblical culture require them to distance themselves from it. So today, it's not about clergy misbehaving and being tried twice, as it was between Becket and Henry. It's about politics and progressive culture. So Jane Ozan is, as many people know, I think, a very vocal member of General Synod who discovered herself to be homosexual in her middle age, and she's a very effective communicator. She says she's spent all her money on her enterprises, and so her friends have told her to set up a foundation which will allow her to draw a salary and promote LGBT issues. She's very competent, and so she's managed to get the Bishop of Liverpool, Paul Bayes, to chair it, and he's been speaking out about it after Christmas. She's got the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral as well. Interestingly enough, she also has the editor of what was the conservative evangelical newspaper, the CEN, or the Church of England newspaper, as we call it.
Well, so let's back up a little bit. What is the goal of this foundation?
The goal of the foundation is to promote what she calls just love, which I think is a wonderful play on words, because in one sense, it's the kind of secular just love, as in the Beatles, all you need is just love. But in another sense, for people who've got a theological ear, just love introduces the notion of justice. And love, which is defined by justice, is not a love where you can do anything you like, which essentially is the LGBT issue. Allow us to express our hunger for affection sexually with whomever we're attracted to, and it's just love, and everyone should be allowed to do it. It's part of the sexualization of society. Mm-hmm. So that's the aim of the Ozan Foundation, and we'll hear a lot more of it, I would think, because she's quite a canny self-publicist.
Well, we know from Archbishop Justin Welby that the greatest sin a human could ever conduct upon the world would be homophobia. Uh, is this in a way to help with that?
Absolutely, it'll be a campaigning foundation to fight homophobia wherever it comes, and particularly the homophobia of clergy who think that marriage should be between a man and a woman only,
Hmm.
or that sexual intimacy should be within a marriage, with the ideal of procreating children. This is the kind of homophobia that it will very much set out to counter and to displace within the teaching of the church.
All right, I have several friends who are writers over in England, and a lot of them write for the Church of England newspaper. Mans, I could go through a whole list of them, and I'm seeing letters now where they're resigning from this position because some of the board members are people like the head of the Church of England newspaper, and they don't want to work with them anymore.
Well, that's what Facebook has flagged up the first of those writers, Julian Mann, who said that he's very sorry. He's written for 10 years. He likes Colin Blakely, but he can't write for a newspaper where the editor is promoting sin. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens to the newspaper, which is on. It doesn't make money. It has a board. It lives off inherited funds. But it used to be, nonetheless, an important platform for a conservative evangelical voice. So it'll be, well, we'll wait and see exactly who's willing to write for it.
I think it's been replaced. Well, let's talk a little bit about then the reaction. I would think at the clerical and lay reaction, people could come out against this in full force. I haven't seen it yet on Facebook. What's the local reaction then?
Well, I think the reaction is going to be weary. For people who want to hold the faith against the tide of public opinion and against the tide of senior appointments. Again, the Bishop-to-be of London, Sarah Mullally, when she was asked about her own position, answered obscurely, which means she's very much in favour of LGBT rights, which we knew, and she's answering obscurely because she doesn't want to give a platform to people who who fashion their views from Scripture. So there's a sense of weariness that those people who want to be faithful to Scripture are facing both opprobrium in the secular culture, being called bigoted and homophobic, marginalization and ridicule at the hands of the episcopate, and the deans. There are several deans who are living with their homosexual partners, and several bishops who are too. They're supposed to be living chaste lives, and God bless them if they are, but nonetheless it's part of a whole reconfiguration of the pattern of relationships, which is making it very difficult for people who want to go on being faithful Anglicans.
All right, so I've not heard a whisper from Justin Welby or other lead clergy in the Church of England on this. Are they silent because they support it, or are they silent because they don't want to make a big deal of something that's going to go away in a little while?
Well, the interesting thing is that there are a number of what we call orthodox bishops. I mean, Julian Henderson, for example, of Blackburn, and Rod Thomas of Maidstone, for example, and Keith Sinclair in the Diocese of Liverpool. And you might expect that they would stand up and say, "You're not speaking in my name." They keep silent. My guess is they keep silent because they're probably bound by collegial responsibility. So why is it then that the liberal radicals are set free from that without any kind of rebuke, but the Orthodox bishops, few though they be, either daren't or can't break it or won't break it? I mean, I'd like to know why it is that either of those three bishops hadn't stood up and said it's not proper for the Bishop of Liverpool to chair a foundation whose teaching is to undermine the teaching of Scripture and of the Church and of the tradition. Why is he doing it? He shouldn't be doing it. But there's not a word out of the College of Bishops, the House of Bishops in the Anglican Church, and that, well, I think is a cause for concern.
I'm not seeing any word from anybody. I mean, the evangelicals are quiet. The Anglo-Catholics are quiet on this. I'm not seeing any uprising. Maybe some people on Facebook here and there are saying, "Oh no," rolling their eyes, but nobody has put together a press release saying this can't stand. This is not what the Church of England is about. This is going to be a bad ending for Anglicanism. They're quiet. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because we're in the middle of a process that's quite confusing.
Hmm.
At the moment, where do the Orthodox go? To what mast do they nail their colours? To which leader do they follow and gather around? At the moment, we're still in a process of transition, while the progressive forces move forward step by step. Every general synod now there are resolutions which press forward. And I guess a lot of people are saying, well, perhaps if I can keep my head down, I'll be okay. The Lord knows what I believe. He knows my heart. He knows I read and love Scripture. There was a poor vicar uh, who was approached by two gay men to marry them. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't and I won't. Immediately, they started an online petition in their village to have him removed. And people pointed out that actually it's against the law for him to do this anyway. But there was a kind of mob mentality that this dreadful bigot had to go. And as is the way, petitions are often the kind of thing that produce the leverage. No one spoke out in public to say, at least no one I heard, to say, this man is simply doing what the Church of England requires him to.
His bishop did not speak out. The Archbishop of Canterbury did not speak out. Boy, the BBC had some fun with it. The Guardian, the Telegraph, every newspaper in England loved the story.
Absolutely.
But where's the defense?
Well, there is none. So, I mean, you won't be surprised to hear that so I mean, I've resigned. I've done what I can, and I think, and I can't speak for everyone else. I mean, we're certainly praying and thinking about how we can organise the Orthodox in England. There are a number of ways of doing it, and I think probably we'd ask for your prayer. Nothing happens beyond prayer. We're in a spiritual struggle which involves blind people seeing and deaf people hearing and sinful people being convicted. So it's a spiritual struggle, but at the moment we're in a period of transition. I guess, as with all these things, these are small little blows. No one's going to resign or to jump over a parapet or to jump up and down over something small. But you see, that's exactly what we thought the policy would be. Justin Welby will preside over a series of small advances, avoiding giving a rallying cry to the Orthodox. And that's exactly what's happening.
He became a champion. Oh, boy. Well, let's move on to some good news then. Let's talk a little bit about how was your Christmas?
My Christmas was wonderful. I heard a very good priest preach a marvelous sermon, and we had a very happy family time. So it was a huge joy. How was yours?
Well, we hosted Christmas here. We had my daughter came from Pittsburgh, and we had some family come from Tollendown, and I got to fry another turkey, which is really a great love of mine, apparently, and had the presents. And I got a Messiah for Christmas. I'm not sure what everybody else got. So kind of cool. Good times.
Wonderful. That's very good. But I got some books, so I've got some books I asked for. I've got a lot of reading to do, which is always very exciting.
Well, as my children often complain, I'm very difficult to buy for. Basically, I already have it if I wanted it, and that can be a troublesome thing. So I got some nice artwork from my wife that was nice, and my kids bought me some alcohol that I'll add to the liquor cabinet, and eventually one day I'll open it. But it's I absolutely agree. I'm difficult to buy for. Gavin, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, and this could be episode 358. I'm Kevin Carlson.
I'm Gavin Ashenden, and it was indeed episode 358 of Anglican Unscripted. You're absolutely on the nail.
Just you would think after 358 episodes, I would have mastered the sign-off. But no.
But Kevin, it's a testimony to your unfailing spontaneity
That's right.
and the unscriptedness of the whole thing.